Hi, good evening, everyone. It looks like we have a quorum, right? 5 is what I see. That works for me. So we'll begin. Actually, I'll just wait a minute just to see if a couple other commissioners join, just to keep it simple. Well, you know what? We have guests, so we'll just get started. And if they can join late, that's fine. So welcome. This is the March 2023 general meeting of ANC 1C representing Adams Morgan. Let's just begin with simple introductions of commissioners. I guess we'll start at the bottom of the numbers. So I'll go first. Peter Wood, 1C03, I represent right in the middle, 18th to 19th, Biltmore, Wyoming. Who do we get next? Commissioner Van Wy. Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Joe Van Wy. I'm the commissioner of 1C04, which is the northwest corner of the ANC.
Good evening. I'm Commissioner Stevens representing 1C05, part of Linear Heights at the back of the zoo. We have Fire Station 21 and the large historical Ontario apartment building.
Hi, this is Linda Laughlin, Commissioner for 1C06, adjacent to Commissioner Stevens, the other side of Linear Heights.
Hi, Commissioner Jake Valaschini, 1C07, right in the middle of Adams Morgan, 18th to 17th Florida, up to Columbia, roughly.
Commissioner Barney Shapiro, 1C08, the southeast corner of the commission, basically from 16th in Florida, up 16th, and then over to Champlain. Not quite Champlain, the block before it.
So the Commissioner Dixon is just texting me. He's trying to figure out the link to get in. So I'll send that to him to double check in a second.
The easiest way to get in is off the website and the agenda.
It's my responsibility currently to make sure that's up to date. So I'm hoping that it's right. I'll send him right now.
That's how I got in.
But it's how I did as well. So I'll just double check. But we do have 2 vacancies, which I'll address when we get to specific commissioners' notes. Actually, I guess is a good time as good a time as any to start that. So I'm just making sure that he gets the link. We'll let him introduce himself in a second. So we'll just begin with continue with officer reports. Just briefly as chair, if anyone has paid attention to the DC Board of Elections website, which I would not recommend getting too into it, but some of us do. The 1C09 position has been filled, but I do not believe that the new commissioner has been sworn in yet. I don't think he's joined us, but we've at least been through email correspondence. So once he's sworn in and able to join, we'll be able to, I think, hopefully take part in the committee meetings that are coming up. We'll have to, of course, decide what committees they'll serve on, but that's something we can discuss separately. 1C01 has 2 people that have decided to run for the position. Actually, I'll pause that thought and I'll let Commissioner Dixon introduce himself first. Glad you made it. Just a simpler introduction.
Hi, I'm Lee. I'm 1C02, and I was elected this past year as a newly elected commissioner.
Glad to see you. So that we have everyone here tonight. I'll just continue what I was saying as chair report. 2 candidates running for 1C01. There has not been a decided date for the election. I've been working on figuring out the best time to have that happen. All collectively offline among the commissioners to figure out when that's best, because it might be an option for us to hold a special election or a special meeting in order to have that just easy to run an election. I'll make sure that's clear for everyone on the commission, and then also with plenty of advance notice, alert the public. So that will be something that will be transparent. It just hasn't been decided because there are a lot of variables to figure out who will do it when and how and where. So it's close, but it's not quite figured out. Hopefully within the next 4 weeks, and ideally before the April 5th meeting, so that whoever wins could serve at the meeting, but one step at a time. So from there, let's go. Who's next on the list? Secretary's report. What do you got?
Thanks. Just the, excuse me, sorry. The normal meeting schedule for March. So I'm just going to go through it real quick. Tonight's the ANC 1C meeting. Wednesday, March 1st, 7 p.m. on Zoom. Wednesday, March 8th, 7 p.m. We'll have our ABC committee meeting. So that's ABC and public safety. And then Wednesday, March 15th, 7 p.m. we'll have the PZT committee meeting. And Wednesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. we'll have the PSE, the Public Services and the Environment committee meeting. And those are all going to take place over Zoom. There's actually, this is one of those weird months where we have 5 Wednesdays. So we will not have a meeting on Wednesday, March 29th, but that might actually be a great opportunity since we have a vacant Wednesday this month to run a special election for that 1C01 position. So just throwing that out there as a possibility. Otherwise, nothing else to report from the secretary.
Thank you for that. You did just sort of incidentally remind me of something. This was my oversight. An agenda item that was supposed to be on tonight's agenda, which has been postponed from past agendas, which I somehow either forgot to put on or got deleted, is the consideration of a resolution regarding the Adams Morgan moratorium zone. I'll add that text. It's the exact same. Nothing's changed. It's been on multiple agendas multiple times. I just didn't make sure it was on there. So I'm going to do that right now as we go to the treasurer's report. Go ahead, Commissioner Shapiro. You're on mute, so whatever you're saying is probably beautiful, but we haven't been able to hear it.
Yeah. As of today, we have $12,245.05 in the bank. The only outstanding invoices that I know about at this time would be for Sean for February services. We have paid for December and January services. The first quarter report, which we filed, and I was told we did it correctly. Apparently, then later in a meeting, I was told we didn't do it correctly. So I'm gonna have to go back through and use the Office of the ANC's system to refile it. They're also changing their system in the next 2 months, so I'm gonna have to learn a whole new system after learning this one now. The one problem we are experiencing logistically is I'm gonna need to get Peter and Joe to the bank with me to add Peter's name as a signatory, and then we can finally get our security fund taken care of. On our budget for the year, our total budget for the year is $21,843. That's the allocation from DC. Within the, if you look in at the yearly budget, I'm going to suggest that we come back and make some changes to that budget. Not tonight, but probably in May. There's 14,000 budgeted for grants out of that 21,000. 4,000 of that has already gone out. I think we might want to take a look at that and how we disperse that in terms of limitations. The grant process is a little bit harder in terms of verification with the city now, with the Office of the ANCs. One of the things, and I was going to suggest this tonight, changing our system from requiring 2 signatures to 1 signature under $500, but the law does not allow that. There's a certain irony is that they just changed the law or the regulations to allow for a debit card. Well, a debit card doesn't need a signature. So there's a discrepancy there in terms of what we're allowed to do. And theoretically, if you get a debit card, just pay everything off of a debit card. But that discrepancy is not with us. It's with the office of the ANC. What else? Any other questions or any questions?
I don't have any. That was really helpful. I mean, for transparency, Commissioner Chaparro and I had a call with ONC the other day, going through all this. It's not particularly fun, but it's important work, and I appreciate it.
Once, you know, like I said, once I get it down, it's easy. It's just it's not a lot of money, but getting it down is never easy. And then now I'm going to learn one system, and another month down the line, I'll have to learn another system. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the inevitable difficulties of, they're just coincidentally, the ONC's transitioning how we upload all of our treasurer data. So it's just in the next month, we'll have to switch what we're doing. So anyone who's worked with data upload systems know that that's the hard part, with going from something that's tricky to good. In the long run is good, in the short term means more work. So that's what we're working with. And as far as the grant stuff, that probably is something that could eventually become a PSE discussion, so we can figure out what our priorities are, what we're able and willing to solicit. So we don't give too much hope to groups, but we can still be honest and transparent with how much money is available for what this coming year.
At some point, you know, I'm of the view that giving a larger grant is better than giving a lot of smaller grants. But that's a discussion for the entire commission to have. And also, it might facilitate a significant impact by trying to bridge grants over fiscal years. So start thinking about that down the line. Maybe in May I could bring forth a new budget with some recommendations.
That's helpful, and it's definitely something we can discuss. Probably not the best to do at this moment, but
No.
definitely. We have money to give for grants, so hopefully we can do some good in the coming months. We'll get there. It looks like Kristen Barton has a couple questions in the chat. One, just kind of pointing out some things. Debit card. I didn't catch this, Barney. If we were to acquire a debit card for the ANC, is there a spending limit? I don't remember.
She didn't tell us that there would be a spending limit. That's why it's ridiculous. You know, you set your own, at least my experience is you set your own spending limits on a debit card. So if we set a spending limit of $21,000, you know, how would that be different from a check? So it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, we'll look into it. In any case, thanks for presenting all of that, and we'll continue to discuss what we can do with our finances going forward. I believe that's it for our officers' reports. Unless the vice chair, if you want to say anything, go ahead. Let's do individual commissioner reports. Start with, I guess we can start with 1C08. Go reverse order now. Commissioner Shapiro, you have anything for your SMD to report?
Well, I'm going to have a couple of questions for zoning later on. You know, in 1C08, the overwhelming question in terms of almost literally everything is Meridian House. And we have a lot of the neighbors have paid for legal bills in the past, and they were successful. And then BZA basically ignored the Court of Appeals. Once again, this might be something to see what the Court of Appeals says. And then we might want to bring in both Meridian House and my neighbors here to have a discussion about it. I also believe that BZA has done something patently illegal by not even notifying us that after of a new review. And we should have come back to the commission for the commission's advice on this matter. But that's just going to be more fodder for the neighbors in their legal battle. Has the chair of the zoning, have you heard anything about Meridian House?
No.
Okay. Pretty much, you know, that's the issue then. I think they were trying to, I think BZA was trying to sneak something very significant in during a transition period. Okay, that's all we got.
Oh, thanks. And that's something that we can definitely collectively pay more attention to going forward and see if there's anything for us to be involved in. Commissioner Pasquini, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't have a lot. We've had a lot of public safety issues, as you all know, with a lot of businesses in my SMD, Peter's SMD, others that have gotten broken into, robbed, burglarized. Several of the condo buildings around, not necessarily directly in my SMD, but several others have gotten broken into recently as well. So continues to be an issue. And it's definitely, yeah, that's right. Kristen said that there are 3 arrests, although there hasn't been a public announcement about the arrests yet. As far as I've seen, I haven't gotten anything official from MPD yet. So I'm holding off on making any public announcements about that. But you know, it just continues to be an issue, continue work with neighbors and to try to talk with them, trying to figure out how we can make sure that MPD is investigating these and making arrests as quickly as possible. These are clearly very upsetting for a lot of us. So that's the majority of the stuff that I've been working on in the SMD over the last month.
Thank you. Commissioner Laughlin.
No major updates for my SMD. I did share with the commissioners a back and forth email we had with DDOT about the bus priority plan on Columbia Road, and it is incorrect on the DDOT website about the RPP parking. So basically residents on Columbia Road who they would be grandfathered in the current system, so they would still be able to park within the neighborhood. It just has not been updated on the DDOT website. So if you have residents in your area, particularly where the bus priority lane would go in, they will still have access to parking. And then quickly, just as the rep to the Adams Morgan bid, had a really fun time walking around the neighborhood to judge storefronts for the Valentine's Day window displays, which was a lot of fun. So thanks to the bid for putting that together. And we'll probably mention this later, or Kristen might mention it later if she doesn't update. There will be some community meetings at the line to talk about public safety. If she could throw those in the chat to remind me of the dates, and for the other residents, that would be awesome.
Thank you. I think you both already did what I was supposed to have said, but committee chairs, make sure you comment on committee matters as well. Next is Commissioner Stevens. Please go ahead.
Well, we've been strangely quiet, which is making me nervous right now, but I will first echo, unfortunately, what Jake just said. We have been experiencing a little more crime, a little on the commercial side, but unfortunately, more on the residential side. And one thing about that is that many individuals and buildings don't want to report it because they're afraid the property values will go down. People won't want to rent or buy units in the building. And so what happens though is that then on paper, it looks like there's very little crime to the MPD. So they won't provide as much police visibility and things like that. So I would, I understand the concern about the property values and so forth, but I would please encourage people to report them. And sometimes, as a matter of fact, sometimes they don't even want to report it to me, tell me. So please, I would say report it officially to the police so that we can keep our neighborhood safe and the whole process, kind of moving in the right direction on that. And then another thing I would say is I did meet with Joseph South the other day, and a bit of good news, they're doing a little better financially, which is wonderful, but they're always looking for volunteers, donations and volunteers. But in particular, it sounds like more volunteers. The guys or the folks there get a little lonely, so maybe even just come over and provide some company, help make some meals, whatever you can do, anytime you can spend. But also, and I thought this was interesting, and I did not know this before, they're kind of looking for a really talented PR type person to really promote them in a very positive light, which I think everyone thinks well of Joseph's House, but they want someone very professional to do that. So if there are any takers out there, please contact me or Joseph's House directly, and that would be fantastic. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We have a lot of very really doing good work type organizations, and Joseph House, one of them that in this moment needs help. And an easy way to do that, like you mentioned, cooking meals to supply for the residents there. So there, get in touch if you're able to help. They do a lot of good work for us. 1CO4, Commissioner, while you're back, update. Go ahead.
Yes, no real updates from me, but thanks everyone for the updates on the public safety issues that have been going on here.
Thanks. So segue to 1CO3. I mean, it's been said several times, but it's still worth repeating. Public safety, especially in terms of residential and commercial burglaries, has been on at least my mind, and I know it's multiple minds on this commission for several weeks now. It's not fun. It's hard. We are sworn to think of the best interests of the entirety of the District of Columbia, and I do try to take into account that theft and crime is not specific to Adams Morgan, but it's still where we represent, and it's important as where we live. And I'm thankful that, as far as I can tell, with notable exceptions, it hasn't been a chain of violent crime as far as we can see, but you never know when something that is nonviolent could become a chain of violent actions. So it's still worth really taking that into consideration. And I appreciate everyone that has come to me and to other commissioners to express what they're going through. It's not easy. As someone who has been a victim of related crimes before, I know that it's not nice to feel that your personal safety is violated. You go questioning that constantly in the future. So we don't have the most power as commissioners. Everyone knows that. We don't really have a budget compared to agencies like the police department, but we're still here to advise, still here to advocate for what people need. And what we need is for crime to stop. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. And it's a hot issue for who agrees and disagrees on what those mechanisms might be. But yeah, that's still a thing. Hopefully the arrests that have come of late will lead to some sort of closure and peace of mind, but we'll see. Unrelated to that, still working on some park related things in Calorama Park that I hope will be good, potentially getting some new infrastructure there. And also it's almost springtime to where volunteers would definitely be welcome. I'm not an explicit like organizer with Calorama Park volunteering, but I take part a lot. So if you're interested in being part of the gardens there this spring, definitely reach out. I can get you in touch with the people. I know several of us have done that at different points in the past. Also waiting for DDOT to give kind of final confirmation that the 1,800 blocks of Calorama and Wyoming will be converted to one-ways. I believe everything's ready to go. I know that I'm pretty sure it was deliberate, and I hope it was deliberate, a waiting period so that the DC water project would conclude, so that they don't rip up the road twice, which has happened on Columbia. But as far as I can tell, that's, it's a bygone now. They already have done that work, but that project is continuing. So yeah, a lot of public works things that hopefully will come to conclusion soon. But when I know more, I'll let everyone know. Next, it would be Commissioner Dixon. Do you have any updates? Go ahead.
No updates from me.
All right, thank you, everyone. So before we get to general public announcements, we do have 3 guests here from various agencies in the city that I'm very excited to have here. Just in the name of time, if we can keep it to about 10 minutes each, I think that'd be ideal. We can ask some questions. We'll start with Representative. I apologize, I don't remember who specifically from each agency is coming tonight. So if you just raise your hands. First, from the Department of Motor Vehicles, we're having a presentation on the ticket from the ticket ombudsman on parking ticket matters. Let's see, who would that be? I believe Tony, is that you? We'll find out. I can't remember. I think so. Again, I apologize. I should have sorted this out in advance. All right, I think you're getting promoted. Tony, you're promoted. If you can unmute yourself, you can go ahead.
Great. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Let's see. Okay, can everyone see that?
At the moment, I don't think so.
Okay, let me try it again.
As far as I know, it should be the green share screen button, but sometimes it's a bit glitchy. Or just weird.
Yeah, let's see. Um, all right, so what I'll do is, let's see. I will just move through the presentation. I wanted to do the short PowerPoint and Okay, all right. So let me just do it this way if I can. And I'm sure I can just explain it as I go. So as I stated earlier, kind of just greetings to everyone. My name is Tony Duggar, and I am the Adjudications Ombudsman for the DC Department of Motor Vehicles. And I like to always like to put an emphasis on adjudications because DMV as an agency does not have an ombudsman. I am an ombudsman for specifically the operations of adjudication. This office was established in 2014, essentially just to help citizens and visitors to the District of Columbia to navigate the adjudication process and identify options to resolve tickets. And as you know, our city is rather robust, needless to say, in its efforts to maintain regulatory management of our traffic and space. I am an appointed person of the mayor. That's important to state because my office, the manner in which it is established is to be objective, primarily really to serve the community and the public, but at the same time to be objective. With that being said, it is my office is independent as it relates to its services to the public. We provide the following services. We inform citizens of their rights to adjudicate tickets in the adjudication process. This includes contesting tickets, a request for reconsideration if you do not agree with the decision, and ultimately an appellate process administratively with the Traffic Adjudication Appeal Board. And if there's a disagreement with the agency and the agency's decision, you can file with DC Superior Court. We assist the public in preparing an adjudication. You can certainly call our office and we'll have a discussion with you on what you're dealing with, what you're facing. And we essentially we'll talk with you and prepare you in terms of how a hearing examiner would think about your particular violation. We will explain the fundamental defenses to a ticket. They are listed on our website, fundamentally 7 defenses. We can certainly go over those, give you some ideas of how to approach an adjudication. We review hearing records. We can, once a decision is made, we can sit down with you at least via phone and talk through what took place in terms of a decision being made. We make referrals to other offices to assist with paying tickets. Unfortunately, for some of our citizens, ticket woes are real, and assistance certainly is necessary. And so we can make those referrals. We identify systemic issues and concerns that are raised by residents. Part of the duty of the ombudsman, as captured in legislation, is to produce an annual report to the director of the agency on what we have assessed in a given period. That's typically, over a 12-month period. And in this particular case in which our office worked, that's over a 12-month fiscal period. And then within reason, we provide an opinion concerning likelihood of winning an adjudication, but we cannot provide legal advice or speak to a final decision. So our process, those are the services. Our process is as follows. When you come or at least make contact with us, we will hear your issue. We will research it to determine its validity. If the issue is valid, we will advise the citizen of the next steps and refer that individual to the appropriate office. If it is invalid, we will explain why it's invalid and why it cannot be forwarded or referred from our office. Now, that doesn't stop a citizen from moving forward. A citizen can certainly go talk. I mean, the only other option in our office is to have a conversation with adjudications or potentially the director, but we usually give the final word. We usually resolve issues before they even get to the director's desk. And typically, if a citizen goes there, based on policy and procedures of the adjudication process, we're pretty much 99.9% dead on when it comes to what a citizen can do and what a citizen can't do. I think the last point, well, I'm assuming that you all can see my PowerPoint, I'm sorry. When the issue is ambiguous, and there are those situations, we will forward an issue like that to the appropriate office which will be the adjudications office for final word or determination. And so, some issues get like that. I had such an issue just yesterday, and we'll make special appeals to the adjudications office when we can make a point of distinction to consider whether or not a decision should be looked at again. Some facts about tickets. I think this is really good. You have 120 days or approximately 4 months to adjudicate a ticket in the District of Columbia. You could do that by mail, online, or in person. As we all know, we're familiar with tickets. They double within 30 days if a citizen does not respond by paying or contesting the ticket. Respond is a very key word here. If a person responds to the ticket, if a person contests the ticket within the first 30 days, the ticket would never double. Just really knowing that simple fact, I know many citizens that utilize and exercise that right. In many instances, they may omit with an explanation, knowing that they probably committed the violation, but it gives them a little time to be able to put together whatever they need to resolve the ticket. But by contesting it, it just kind of stretches it out a bit. If a resident disagrees with the decision, you contest the ticket, you don't like the decision, you have 30 days from the hearing date to request a reconsideration of the decision. Now, there are multiple levels. I'm going to move through those very quickly, but each level, there's a 30-day window that you can file to continue your adjudication. After reconsideration, if you don't like the decision, you have, again, 30 days to file with the Independent Adjudication Appeal Board. And from there, if you don't like that decision, you have 30 days to file with DC Superior Court. Everything that's needed is on the website. Even the form to file with DC Superior Court, you can find it there. There's a search bar on the website, as is for most websites, and you can just type it in, it'll take you directly to the page. Here, some may be familiar, some may not. But if a resident does not contest the ticket within the first 60 days, and again, 120 days, 4 months, you have to contest the ticket before all options close. With smack in the middle of that, 60 days, if a person does not contest the ticket within 60 days, they must file, or they have the option to file, a motion to vacate. And that's between the 61st day and 120th day from the date of the ticket. That's a great option, particularly for people who may travel. You really didn't know that you had a ticket. We have a sizable military base of residents that live in the city, and a lot of times they're deployed. What happens is once you get back, you realize you have a ticket. It's after 60 days, you could use a motion to vacate. There are, this is critically important as well. It's good to know because it is an adjudication process. It is legal. It is administrative. There is evidence that's required. And when a ticket is written, the government must provide evidence. And so we provide the 2 sites that citizens can go to look at the government's evidence as they prepare for their adjudication. For camera tickets, it is a site, and I could put this in the chat. It is public.site-web.com, and that is for camera tickets of all sorts, whether it's stop sign, red light, or speeding. For parking tickets, it's really simple. You can go to the Department of Public Works because they are responsible primarily for writing parking tickets, and they have a link that is called Tick Pick, and you can simply go to that link on their site, and you can look at the required evidence that a ticket enforcement officer would put on that site that will be their evidence for the adjudication. There are 4 agencies, as you probably know, that regulates traffic and space in the District of Columbia. I heard you mention the Department of Transportation. Certainly DDOT's responsible for road signs and signages and notices. They do an aspect of enforcement. They direct traffic. They really rulemaking and all those kinds of things. And again, as I heard earlier, they certainly are constantly, reshaping our environment to assist with the many different mobile, devices that we have in the district today. The DC Metropolitan Police Department is typically responsible for enforcement, specifically in the area of police stops. I should say, when a ticket is written primarily in the district, it's written to the car, and the owner's responsible for the ticket. And those rare occasions when there's a police stop, where the actual person be issued the ticket. Metropolitan Police is also at least share, if this hasn't fully gone over, I believe, to DDOT, they have responsibility with the automated enforcement program. Public Works, as I mentioned, they do enforcement. They're primarily responsible for the parking tickets, but as we know, they boot, they impound, and they auction as well. And the DC Department of Motor Vehicles, primarily all we do is they adjudicate tickets. I mean, other than the driver's services that we offer, but in terms
I think your audio dropped out, Tony. I'm not able to hear you. You're back.
You say my audio dropped out?
I think it's back.
Can
It
you
might
hear
have
me
been my internet too. I think you're good.
Okay, all right. Just about to the end. So there are some commonly asked questions. And these are really good for the public whenever we are working with the community. Some of the commonly asked questions: how long does it take to complete a hearing decision online or through mail adjudication? The time frame changes based on the caseload. Right now, it's approximately 8 to 10 weeks. The ticket is suspended during that time that your adjudication is being reviewed. There's no adverse impact on you on your ticket. It's suspended in the system. Can a ticket be transferred from one person to another? It's a commonly asked question. The answer very simply to that is no. Can a person request a payment plan? Commonly asked question, yes. That's outside of the DMV. That's actually through the Central Collections Unit. And we do have all of the contact information if a person so chooses to inquire into a payment plan. Will DMV consider undelivered or late mail from USPS? No. The actual mail delivery is a separate entity. DMV is only obligated, the adjudications arm, in sending out notices to the information it has on file. And so that's critically important as well, because we're always advising citizens to make sure that their registrations are updated, because typically most information that DMV is going to get pertaining to where you're located is going to be through your vehicle registration. Can a person adjudicate a ticket connected to a rental or lease vehicle? Always a big popular question. And it's a kind of yes and no to that. Primarily, no, because in the District of Columbia, you have to be the owner of the vehicle in order to contest the ticket. Though you can go online and contest the ticket, and typically online, you're not required to submit proof of ownership. And so that's kind of the yes part. But the tricky thing with rental to lease vehicles, and well, more with rental than lease vehicles, and that's most rental companies will pay a ticket and just charge it back to the customer. And so we get a lot of that. That's really a kind of a tricky process. And people always feel, when the rental car company says, hey, you have this ticket, they feel like they have a right to adjudicate it. Really, in reality, legally, they don't. So that's really the end of my presentation. Personal questions to adjudication. I'm going to put my information in the chat. If you have, personal ticket issues that you want to talk about. Other than that, I can take any questions that you may have specifically about adjudications. I can tell you typically in these presentations, people are asking about tickets and a lot of different things. Remember, it's 4 agencies. So, I could provide with you as much information on the other agencies as I possibly can, but I think sometimes it's probably good to have all the agencies present because the questions go in all kinds of directions. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot of information. Really appreciate you sharing all of that. Any commissioners have any questions or comments at this time? Commissioner Shapiro, you had your hand up. You want to go?
Yeah, and I'm not, now listening to your presentation, that's why I took it down, probably doesn't fit. Just out of curiosity, do you know, did we ever resolve the issue with collecting tickets from Virginia?
No, I don't. I'll have no information on that in terms of where that stands. I don't even know, the director does presentations. Maybe the director may have some information for that, but I certainly don't.
Thanks. I have one question. It might be similar. I don't know if you can answer it specifically, but I've gotten some feedback from residents and had some discussions about the role of temporary license plates. How does that fit into ticket adjudication? Is that something that creates extra challenges? Is that a unique scenario? Have you noticed anything, at least?
Well, not from an adjudication point of view. Adjudications is going to adjudicate a ticket if there's a violation. It certainly is going to go through its process. Typically, what happens is temporary tags pose a problem oftentimes for the citizen because the citizen forgets about the fact that they had temporary tags. A lot of those tickets come up later down the line. I get those calls. I think I got a call on that today where a citizen just was like, I know nothing about this, nothing about this tag and the whole 9 yards. And then we had to really refresh the citizen's mind, around the fact that at some point you bought a car, and did you buy a car at a certain time? And then boom, it will all come back to a person and say, oh yeah, I say, yeah, and it comes from that temporary tag. So it's really more of a challenge for the citizen than it is for DMV.
Thank you. Commissioner Koskinen. You're on mute.
Sorry, thanks. I had 2 questions, one for myself and one for a constituent. So the one for myself is sometimes, we see cars that are parked illegally that are otherwise acting as very bad actors in the neighborhood. We look up their license plate, comes back that there are multiple tickets, sometimes thousands of dollars of tickets that are lined up on cars. What can we do to make sure that for those seriously bad actors that we can get a booting team out to the location immediately to get that car booted and towed so that they know?
So technically that's a DPW question, but what I'm going to direct you to is 311. I think the same information that you are able to access to see that there is a volume of tickets, when DPW, well, first of all, when an enforcement officer shows up, they're going to be able to see that as well. And then that's going to trigger the other services that we do have to be able to secure that vehicle. But 311 works. I use 311. I work at DMV, but 311 really works well. And they're going to let you know when they confirm a service. I've used it in front of my house because I live on the borderline of Washington, D.C. and Maryland. And so we get a lot of, people parking outside. We get a lot of commercial vehicles that park. And we've been very effective in our community of keeping them off of our streets, and extremely successful with that. And I feel real good about that. So 311 really, really works. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Duggar. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate your presentation. I had a question also from one of my constituents, which was with my interest in transportation and reducing car use, I spend a lot of time thinking about tickets, when they should be given, what happens if people don't pay them, et cetera. So can you just ask, I think the question that's in there is, what happens when people don't pay their tickets, and how quickly is the city able to respond, and how?
Well, okay, so that's a very broad question. Okay, so what happens when a person doesn't pay their tickets? First of all, they're going to double. If you don't pay them, they're going to double in the first 30 days. After that, you're going to become boot eligible. Then after that, you will be booted. And your tickets will continue to accumulate. That's the real serious issue. I think it's probably the best description of that is the avoidance of reconciling your tickets, whether it's by adjudication or simply paying your tickets. It's just really you're digging yourself just a deeper hole, because we call it the end of the line. When you booted and you're towed and you're down Blue Plains, your vehicle's there. You either have to get the vehicle out or it's going to be up for auction. So that is really the process. That's how we progress along the way for those, I guess, bad actors, as you mentioned, that just wants to avoid tickets or kind of blow them off. And then I just want to say this, and maybe it's not even blowing tickets, but it's really blowing off the law. It's just no regard for the law. And so we have the rules for a reason. It helps us all, and it benefits our community.
Great, thank you so much. At that, we'll conclude. Really appreciate your time. Lots of great information. We could definitely have several hours of conversation about this, and I will not put everyone through that right now. But sure. I really appreciate having you here tonight, Tony. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Likewise. All right, so next is, I believe, Mike McLaughlin from Department of General Services to just go over some recent testing that happened at the Adams campus for Oyster Adams Elementary. Welcome, Mike. Glad to have you here.
All right, thank you. I've got a presentation. I'm going to see if I can get it up on the screen real quick.
You had better luck than Tony. That's good.
Okay, good. Awesome. Thanks. So I'm Mike McLaughlin. I'm with the Department of General Services and External Affairs. I am here to talk to you a little bit about proactive routine lead testing at playgrounds. We also cover public buildings. I'll talk a little bit about our process at the outset, and then we'll get into the details about Oyster Adams bilingual school Adams campus, which for anybody on the call who doesn't know, it's at 2020 19th Street, which is a few blocks south of Columbia Road. So we do this routine testing. There's a new piece of legislation that covers it that I will describe in a moment, but just a real quick summary about our agency. So the Department of General Services, DGS, is responsible for building, maintaining, and sustaining DC's real estate portfolio, which includes more than 42 million square feet of district-owned and leased assets. There are some other numbers on this slide that may be interesting to you. But we have a fairly large scope of work. A lot of the properties are DCPS properties, DPR properties like recreation centers, but we're also responsible for police department buildings, fire stations, sort of any public space that you see. Just a couple of quick introductions. They're not all on this call, obviously, but Keith Anderson is our director. External Affairs is led by John Stokes. I'm there, Mike McLaughlin, and then you may be familiar with my colleague Wayne Gore, who covers community outreach for the whole district. And has been his role for several years. And so he may be a familiar face there. And he's on the call as a listener as well. So that's the team. So the Public Facilities Environmental Safety Amendment Act of 2020 is what brings me to you. So it amended two existing laws, the Healthy Public Buildings Assessment Act of 2016 and the Safe Fields and Playgrounds Act of 2018. So it established new requirements for ANC outreach, community engagement, testing frequency, and testing scope. So I've tried to boil down the legislation, which I know you can't click on the link, but there is a link to the legislation at the bottom of the slide. I can also drop that in the chat after I'm done talking. But essentially, on the building side of things, the Amendment Act added 5 environmental risks that we test for. So groundwater quality, dust, gas and diesel emissions, PCBs, and then volatile organic compounds for a total of 17, which I'll talk through briefly. It also mandates ongoing 10-year testing cycles. So until the law is changed, we will test for these 17 risks in all public buildings, no less than every 10 years. Now for recreation spaces, which is really what we're talking about for Oyster Adams Bilingual School, the scope is a little bit smaller. It focuses on testing for lead on synthetic surfaces, and that is required to happen every 3 years. So that's a new sort of change around the Amendment Act. So again, synthetic spaces, we're talking about dog parks, playgrounds, athletic fields, anything that has synthetic turf on it will be tested no less than every 3 years. So that's the summary of the law there. We won't drain this slide, but really this is just to summarize all of the risks that we test for in indoor spaces, all of those buildings that are comprised by the 42 million square feet of space that I was talking about earlier. I will pause and talk a little bit more about the recreational spaces, since that's what was tested at Oyster Adams and found to have actionable lead test results. We test in 3 ways. So one is XRF samples. So that's a type of X-ray testing that looks kind of under the surface of a synthetic field. The next is bulk samples. So what happens there is we take a sample of the bulk rubber or bulk synthetic material, rinse it, and then test what comes off when you wash it. So it's called rinsate, but basically it's the water that comes off when you clean a synthetic surface. That is what was tested for at Oyster Adams and found to have some lead in it. And I'll talk about what that means. And then the third one is a wipe sample. So that, again, tests the material itself versus things that may fall onto the material from the environment. So that's where we'll focus today. As you know, 2020 19th Street Northwest. What we know about Oyster Adams Bilingual School, Adams Campus, as part of this proactive routine testing, there were 3 spaces that are pictured on the left side that we tested for. So the first space, A, was a playground, B is a running track, C is an open turf area. All 3 areas were tested using those 3 types of lead tests that I was just describing. Only playground, or playground A, but the playground, tested positive for lead. It was just over the threshold at 450 parts per million, whereas the threshold that was set by the EPA and adopted by the district is 400 parts per million. So it gives you a sense of sort of the degree of the issue here. Like I said, the running track and the open turf area did not produce actionable results. What we do at that point is close the surface. So the requirement is within 24 hours of finding this actionable lead result, the surface gets closed. And then what you're looking at here is the remediation process. So in this case at Oyster Adams, the remediation was to clean it with a trisodium phosphate solution. It is then vacuumed with a HEPA vacuum to prevent runoff and also kind of clean up what is rinsed off of the surface. And then the space is retested. So all of this activity took place in early February. So the lead test came back from the lab on February 3rd. The playground was closed right away at the end of the school day. The cleaning took place over the weekend. The retest results took place on that Monday, and then we were able to, with a non-detect result, reopen the playground area for use, and it remains open currently. So to kind of close out before I take questions, this is just a summary of kind of how we try to keep the neighborhood informed. The first is what I just described, 24 hours, within 24 hours of an actionable lead test result, we close the space. If it had been closed for a longer period of time, the threshold is 10 days, we would have put up detailed signage that would articulate some of what I'm sharing today, but because it was so quick from basically a Friday to a Tuesday morning, we did not put up that detailed signage. We also notify the ANC. Those notification letters also go to the council person for the ward. They're also published on our website to try to keep everyone informed. Our partner agencies also usually inform their constituent base. So in this case, DCPS share information with their families. And then finally, on the right side, I got ahead of myself. That's sort of a quick tutorial on where you can find any actionable environmental risk letters that are sent to ANCs. And those will always be kept up to date. So I will pause there. I know that was a lot of information. I'm happy to kind of answer questions about the legislation or about Oyster Adams in particular.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Shapiro, go ahead.
Was this the first test at Oyster Adams?
The first test under this legislation, yes.
Was there a prior test at Oyster Adams, just in general?
I would have to check. So there have been other lead testing regimes in place, like there's annual testing for water, and there's also annual GMAX testing for like hardness. I am not aware of lead surface tests, but like I said, this is a new role for me. So let me check and make sure.
My question gets to, has the percentage of lead gone, the lead percentage gone down, or stayed stagnant, or even worse, gone up?
It's a great question. So let me see what I can find out. And I think I should have articulated this more clearly when we were talking at the beginning. So when you find lead in rinsate, right, it often means it comes from an environmental factor. Those environmental factors are quite broad. I mean, it could be paint from an old building. It could be construction site dust. It could be road traffic. And so it's a double-edged sword, right? Like the good thing is it's not in the material itself. It's not the result of the poured in place material that the playground surface is made of, but it creates this much broader sort of bucket of possibilities for where the lead may have come from, which can make it harder long-term to sort of manage. So let me find out what may have taken place in the past and come back to you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pasquini, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. McLaughlin. I appreciate it, the thoroughness, and also for the transparency that the district has around this sort of thing. So thank you very much. My question is, this playground, along with the entire campus, is set to be raised in about 4 months, right? So
yes.
What is the process by which the city, will this change that raising process, or will it lead to any other changes during the reconstruction of the site? If not, like, this is pretty much like we're talking about like a 3-month thing and then we're done, right?
Yeah, so the law also stipulates that if there's a substantial renovation, which is set at 50% or more of something being, constructed or deconstructed, additional testing has to occur. So that will occur simply because of the modernization that is planned. I don't know if that answers your question, but you're right in that the students will move to the Meyer swing space, I believe, starting in the summer and for 2 school years thereafter.
That was it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think we might have a couple of questions, at least one in the audience. I'm not sure if it's particular to this. If you want to promote Jan, I'm not sure if she was waiting for public comments or not, but we'll find out. Hi, you have this floor. Is your question for the current presenter or public comments in general?
Hi, it is about Adams School. My name is Jeannie. I'm a 20+ year neighbor of Adams School. I was going to ask Mike about faulty playground equipment on the playground, which causes an incredibly irritating metal on metal grating sound. I've contacted the council member, I've contacted the school, I've called the school, and I've received no response. However, I had no idea about the upcoming construction. Where can I find out more information about that?
We have information, well, DCPS, I believe, will also have information on their website. You can, if you want to connect with me here, actually, I'll put my email address on the screen. I can connect you with the publicly available information about what the plan is, Jeannie, if that would be helpful. I don't know it off the top of my head, otherwise I would absolutely share it here, but I'd rather point you to what is publicly available.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Foskini, you have your hand up again, please go ahead.
Sorry, just responding to Jeannie. It's the Department of General Services that handles construction at and like any sort of maintenance at DCPS schools, which I think is incredibly sexist. I think the only reason why that is in place is because it was an agency that was traditionally run by women. And most school principals and teachers have been women. And so the city decided to have another agency have to oversee any of the construction and work that happened there. But that's like a whole aside conversation about structural sexism in our city and country. But that is all to say they are an awfully run organization, probably one of the worst in DC. And I would be happy to yell and pester at them like I have for construction that was needed at Murray Reed for months and years even, and the other schools in our district. I feel like it's my special place as the only parent on the ANC to yell at DGS whenever I get a chance. So please feel free to send me an email, and I would love to just shoot off another angry email at DGS for you.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions from commissioners, community? We'll close there. Thank you so much, Mike. That was really informative. I appreciate your time. Next up, we have, I believe we might have lost them. We'll check. We had a presentation on the agenda from the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. I believe it was Portia. I don't know if she's still here. If you're here from that office, please raise your hand and we'll let you speak. It's not Johnny. All right, well, I'm going to get in touch with them because I didn't want to hear from them. So, and would correspond before. I think that maybe just they weren't expecting the hour delay until speaking. So hopefully that's the case. We'll move forward then in the agenda to general public comments. As a reminder, as always, we are bound by Robert's Rules of Order. So we discuss issues, not people. If you don't do that, I will kindly interrupt you and ask you to yield your time. But otherwise, welcome. I'm glad to hear from you. Let's see. First up, we have Lauren from Councilmember Nadeau's office. Welcome, Lauren.
Always takes a second. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Just a couple of updates in case you are not already on the newsletter list for Councilmember Nadeau. That just went out today and it had, I think, two important updates for community members. One, as has already been referenced, is in regards to public safety. That has clearly been top of mind for the council member and everyone in 1C, if not the ward, specifically in recent weeks. So I will share a link to that update in the chat. Additionally, there is an update on her budget request to the mayor. And in that, you'll probably find some of interest. A lot of them are capital requests. And so I will also share a link to that update in the chat. Additionally, I want to second the conversation, and I'm sure Kristen will provide an update on this for the community conversations coming up on March 13th and 27th. I think, excuse me, those will be a very good opportunity for community members who just hear directly from the agencies that are all involved in supporting our public safety as a community. And the council member will also be there. So please look out for more information in regards to that. And other than that, no other updates.
Thank you so much. Any questions from any commissioners for Councilmember Nadeau's office while we have her in line? I think we're good. You're off the hook this month.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks. Next up, Kristen Barden. Commissioner Faustin, do you have a comment before we move on?
Sorry, yeah, Nancy actually stole my question in the chat. I was just wondering if there are any updates on Unity Park. I feel like I'm beating the same drum.
That's good. If we can bring Lauren in really quickly, if she's still here, just to answer that. I think multiple people would like to know the answer, if there is one.
I was just going to respond in the chat. I don't have an update. I knew I should have brought that. I should have an update for that every month. But I will look into that, and actually I'll communicate that to the commissioners, and then you all can disseminate as necessary. Okay.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
You're welcome.
All right, next, Kristen Barton from the Adams Morgan Business Partnership and Business Improvement District. There we go. Welcome, Kristen.
Hey everyone, how are you? So can I share my screen, and I want to share the two draft agendas for these community conversations that are happening on March 13th and March 27th. They're not quite finalized, but I thought it would be helpful for you all to see kind of what we're planning. So there's two, like I said, there's a part 1 and a part 2. The first one is on Monday, March 13th. Both of them start at 6:30 and will go till about 8:30. They're going to be in the community center at the Line Hotel. And these are being organized or coordinated by the U.S. Department of Justice Community Relations Service. Denise Nazaire, she's been amazing and is a really tremendous resource. So the first one on March 13th will be kind of focused on social services. So we're going to have the Department of Behavioral Health, the Department of Human Services, along with Miriam's Kitchen, who has the contract for homeless outreach in Ward 1 and specifically in Adams Morgan. And then we also are going to hear from Sala Sapari, who's the director of the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture, and then Japer Bowles, who's with the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. So that's pretty much the agenda for the first one. And we're trying to make sure there's plenty of time for Q&A as well. And then the second day, the 27th, is going to be more focused on law enforcement. And we're still trying to confirm some people here, but we're going to have folks from HCMA, from MPD, from the ONE's office, which I know you were hoping to hear from tonight, and the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and also the Office of the Attorney General. So that's kind of the agenda for both of those sessions. I'll stop sharing my screen now. But as you can see, we're still trying to finalize who from some of those agencies is going to present. But yeah, the capacity for that room is only about 50 people. I think we're going to try to do an Eventbrite to gauge attendance. And if we get, a lot more than 50 people for each session, we'll probably have to move it somewhere else in the hotel. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about that. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has questions about those two meetings that we're helping to organize. Okay. All right. So I'll keep going. All right. So a couple things from the bid about all of our programming. So thanks for the shout out about the Valentine's Day decorating contest. I'm glad you had a good time, Linda. We really love that event. It's super fun. And it's all about neighborhood spirit. So, and the 3 winning businesses were really thrilled to win and to get a little bit of money. So, our annual meeting, I think you all probably got the invitation to that. It's on Tuesday, March 14th. It's a breakfast at Roofers Union. Please join us. Please let me know if you can join us. We want to try to gauge the food based on RSVPs. So the meeting should start about 9:30 and go till about 11. Please come anytime after about 8:45 for breakfast, coffee, and there'll be a presentation from Salah Sapari. He'll be our keynote speaker. We'll be finishing up our board elections, and the council member will be there. I'll have a brief report, so it won't be a long meeting, but please join us if you're able to. And we'll also show our annual report video. So we've been working for a few months now on this about 4-minute annual report video. So that's it's always really well done. We have a great videographer. And I think I've mentioned that we're redoing the bus shelter posters. So those should be installed probably early April. We're finishing up the designs now. And it takes Clear Channel a few weeks to install those. So I know some of them are in pretty bad shape at this point because they've been up for a few years. So the Office of Planning, I know you all are familiar with the Streets for the People grant that we got for the pedestrian zones. The new NOFA just came out for this year's funding for the Streets for the People project. There's a lot less money. So last year we got $595,000, which 75% of that is for the infrastructure, which we are still trying to get permitted through DDOT and MPD. But most of that money is for the infrastructure. But this year, the total grant, the total funds available for the 5 or 6 grantees is only $600,000. So the likelihood of us getting, more than 100,000, maybe 150 is not very high. So I think what we're probably going to do is do some more pedestrian zones, but do them in conjunction with our existing programming, not do separate events. So we're going to do a Spring Porch Fest on May 20th. So we would try to do a pedestrian zone for that. Our Fall Porch Fest in October, we would try to do a pedestrian zone for that. And then also for Adams Morgan Day. Adams Morgan Day, as you all know, is not our event, but we would try to include that in as one of the 3 pedestrian zones that we would try to implement this year with, should we be successful in getting that additional funding. So wanted to kind of alert you all to that. That proposal is due at the end of March. So we'll be working on that throughout this month. Date nights, I think you've all probably seen the marketing for our date nights that kicked off on February 14th and it runs through March 17th. And the Adams Morgan Act of Kindness, we gave businesses little bags of candy to pass out to customers on February 14th. We got some really great response from that. So it was really, really good to see. Let's see, the Admo Art Walk. This will be our 4th year for that, partnering artists with businesses and displaying their art in the windows. That is going to kick off April 3rd and will run the whole month of April. I think we have 13 businesses that have signed up, and the pairing now with the businesses and the artists will happen soon. DC Art Center is our partner in the Admo Art Walk, and they're going to be organizing some formal art walks or some organized art walks to go with people around to look at the different artwork with the artists, along with them. So people can really interact with the art and the artists. We're also going to be bringing back the drag story time in Unity Park. That will start in May. It'll run from May through October. That's always a really fun event. I mentioned the Spring Porch Fest already on May 20th. Movie nights will be coming back also at the Reed Field. Those will start May 23rd is the first one. And we're adding a 6th date. So usually we only do 5 movies. We're going to add a 6th one this year. And the theme is going to be Adams Morgan is a joke. And they're all going to be comedies. So that's our movie nights theme. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to try to partner with Hotbed Comedy Club, and maybe have some comedians do, you know, some little 5-minute openers, and some other stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're also going to be bringing back Admiral Vibe, which was the summer concert series we did last August for the first time, and it had a great reception. That was in Calorama Park. So we'll be bringing that back again on Wednesdays in August. So when we don't have ANC meetings, we can, you know, go listen to live music. And then the October Porch Fest will be Saturday, October 7th. So that's a quick run through of a lot of programming. But one of the things I wanted to just put on your radar, if you haven't heard about this yet, is this World Culture Festival that's coming to DC. It's going to be mostly on the Mall, and it's being described to me as the Folklife Festival on steroids. So if any of you have gone to the Folklife Festival over the July 4th weekend, this is going to be even bigger than that. They're expecting between 100 and 200,000 people to come to this. It's September 29th through October 1st. And I think it's just going to be a fabulous event for the city. It's a really large scale event. This is only the third one that has been held. The first one was in India. Second one was in Brazil, I think. And then the third one is going to be here in DC. So it's going to be a fabulous opportunity. So something to put on your calendar. So I think that's it for me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kristen. I'll combine a couple of questions, one mine and then one that Commissioner Foskini put in the chat. This might have a long answer, so if that's the case, you don't have to give that right now. But the cost for street closure in terms of like, what's a ballpark? I know there's a lot of variables at hand. Two-part question. What's like kind of a ballpark number for what it costs to shut down 18th Street for a weekend? And how would the installation of permanent infrastructure change that cost in the long run?
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out that latter part. So it costs us about $50,000 for each of the street closures that we did with the Office of Planning Streets for the People grant funding. 20+ thousand of that was for MPD. So, right. So ideally with the permanent infrastructure, we should not need as many MPD. We should not need the dump trucks. We should not need the traffic control officers or TCOs. We should not need, a lot of that. Yes, we're still going to need some MPD. Yes, we're still going to need orange barrels and some of that, traffic redirection stuff, right? But we should need less of all of it, presumably, right? We are still trying to get confirmation of that. So it's a high priority on our list, and we have still not gotten that confirmation. So we're working hard on it. We attended a presentation on a street closure system that Capital One Arena is exploring with MPD for use on F Street, because they, close F Street for every event that they have at Capital One Arena. And they do that now with police cruisers, which is expensive. So they're exploring some other street closure systems. So we're hopeful that if MPD and HSEMA and everybody likes, or can agree on a system that would be used on F Street, that then we could use then the same system on 18th Street. So, because we've been having a difficult time trying to get all of the different agencies to agree on one thing that they will permit and allow to be installed on 18th Street. So more to come on that. But in the meantime, we have to apply for the next grant. So
it's helpful. Thank you so much. I believe the other hands were separate, so let you go.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Oh, I see Nancy's question in the chat.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think vendors are going to be allowed in the street because there's not, you have to maintain that 20-foot fire lane in the center. And with the streeteries, there's not enough room for that. So so I don't think they'll be able to put vendors in the street, not with the streeteries.
Thank you so much. Lots of good information. Busy few months ahead for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, so it looks like we have two people in the audience, or the attendee list, excuse me, that would like to speak. First, we have Nancy, your hand is up. The floor is yours when you're ready.
I put the questions in the chat and I'd like to get answers if there are any.
All right, I think that one of your questions.
Go ahead. The status of repairs of Unity Park, a stakeholders meeting. Do you plan to have that? Has the Line Hotel made any commitment? And a specific contact person in DPR.
So thank you. I believe that at least to the extent they can, Commissioner Councilmember Nadeau's office representative answered, and will hopefully be back and sending us information. So it looks like it's an incomplete answer for now, but when that information is available, we'll definitely share that. And then the second, Christian just answered. So I hope that satisfies your inquiries tonight. Next up, Deborah. Thank you so much for your patience, by the way, to everyone that's waiting. I know we had a lot of organizations and agencies speak so far, so really appreciate that. Go ahead, Deborah.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll be really quick. I live on U Street, and we had an event 2 weeks ago that Phil Mendelson attended. He came down to speak to some of the people in the neighborhood about the 17th and U DEMPED project to demolish and redevelop that large piece of public land that currently houses the police station, a fire station, and a parking deck. And some people from Adams Morgan were in attendance at that event. So I thought some of your listeners, residents on this call might be interested in an update. So we're going to be having some meetings coming up with various public officials that have to do with planning and zoning and things like that. So if anyone wants to stay on top of that or get involved or make a comment about that particular project, I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and please feel free to reach out and I can keep you informed. What is happening there is that they want to build something that's 11 stories high. Some of the neighbors are concerned about it being out of scale. That lot is in the middle of a driver's section historic district and lots of low-rise historic homes. So some homeowners are worried about that. We have not seen a plan. We don't know if we're getting any public amenities. They were pitching a library, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. And we have no guarantee of how many affordable housing units we're going to get. And for some of us, that's important. We need more affordable housing. And if they're going to go 11 stories, then we'd like to know that we're going to get a commensurate amount of affordable housing, and it's not just going to be another luxury development. So there's a lot of different concerns around this project, a lot of different opinions, and we're just trying to have as much public engagement as we can. We've had very limited amount of public engagement from our councilwoman, and so we're trying to create these opportunities for public engagement on our own. And I want to thank you for allowing me a chance to present this, and I'll put my email address in the chat for anyone who wants to follow up. Thank you very much.
The thanks is ours for you. And as Commissioner Falaskini pointed out in the chat, the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee that we have will be discussing this matter, and I anticipate this will be something that will be widely discussed across Ward 1, officially, formally, and informally. So I believe there will be plenty of opportunities. And to the best of my knowledge, that in the stage of collecting information from the community. So that's exactly what we'll do. Commissioner Falaskini, go ahead.
Thanks. I would just note that in the OP, I'm not even sure what to call it. It's on their website where they have like a description of the project and what they're asking for. I don't know what the technical term is for that. But on there, it does actually list out affordable housing as one of the primary concerns of the city in rezoning this lot, and that it would need to be more than the IZ plus limits that are there. So I would just note that. I'm going to try to find that report and to post it up in the chat for anyone who's interested. It's a really interesting read if you are at all concerned about that project at all. Yeah, the set down report. Thank you, Lauren. That's the name of it. It's a technical term, and so I just like completely lost it.
Perfect. It looks like we have one other hand up. It is our Moker. Welcome. If you're speaking, you're on. There you go. Yeah, you're off mute.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Get my picture. All right. I have a couple of updates. Hope everyone's doing great. Few updates for you guys. Last week, the Mayor Bowser announced that residents who own the 2011 through 2021 Kia Hyundai vehicle will be eligible for a free anti-theft device. Residents impacted can visit any MPD district station to pick up a steering wheel lock on a first-come, first-served basis while supplies last. Residents who qualify for steering wheel locks must have proof of vehicle, steel key ignition, keyless entry, push to start vehicles are impacted, proof of DC registration, and a district ID. From February 20th through May 15th, DC Water will be conducting a routine citywide temporary switch in the drinking water disinfectant from chloramine to chlorine. During this time, you will notice a slight change in the taste and smell of your drinking water. DC Water routinely collects test water samples to monitor the chloramine and the chlorine levels throughout the city, and will continue to do so during this period. To reduce taste or smell of chlorine, DC Water recommends to run the cold water tap for 2 minutes, run it for 5 to 10 minutes when water is not used for several hours, refrigerate cold tap water in an open pitcher. Within a few hours, the chlorine taste and odor will disappear. Some filters may require chlorine taste and smell. DC Water recommends using devices that are installed at your faucet tap or pitcher style filters. Use a filter certified to meet NSF standards to replace the filter as recommended by the manufacturer. That's that. And feel free to reach out to me if you want further information on any of these updates that I'm providing as well. On the 24th of February, Mary Bowser and the District Parks and Recreation announced registration for the 2023 spring programs that begins on March 1st today. Aquatics programs will begin Thursday, March 2nd for all other programs. Registration opens at noon on both days. DPR programs offer this spring include aquatics programs, including learning to swim, aquatics fitness, senior aquatics, water polo, and lifeguard instructions. Team sports and athletics, including soccer, kickball, volleyball, gymnastics, baseball, softball, t-ball, pickleball, tennis, and flag football. Out of school time programs like DC Public Schools Fun Day, March 10th, and DCPS Spring Break Camp, April 18th through the 21st. Additional activities include fitness programs, senior programming, dance, candle making, music, and movie nights. Okay, the Department of Small Business and Local Business Development is accepting applications for the 2023 Robust Retail Citywide Grants. These grants support existing DC-based retail businesses and maintaining operations and viability during the current small business crisis. DSLBD intends to award up to $5,000 per business to approximately 100 businesses from the $500,000 in available funding this fiscal year. Deadline for that is April 10th at 2 p.m. The mayor is inviting residents to come join her on Wednesday. Oh, well, I'll skip that one. Okay, and DPI will be posting streets. They will begin posting street sweeping on March 1st. Every year between March and October, our sweepers will operate along residential streets where signs are posted restricting parking during street sweeping hours. DPW will issue warning from March 1st through March 10th. After March 10th, vehicles in violation of posting parking restrictions will be subject to a $45 fine. Those are my updates. Any questions? I can take those at this moment.
Looks like we have one. Thanks, by the way. That was a lot of good information. Commissioner Laughlin, go ahead.
I think I saw this mostly on Twitter and didn't know if you could confirm the COVID centers are still open, but you can no longer get a COVID test at libraries. I think that started today or it's starting soon. Is that correct?
I can look into that once I get off this call and shoot you an email with the updated information on that.
Okay, or throw it in the chat, but I think that's what I read. I just know I'm very used to going to the library to pick up a COVID test, and I know other residents might be as well. So just be prepared that you'll need to go to a COVID center, which I think each ward has one. I think the one for Ward 1 is on U Street. Just as a reminder to everyone that that program is ending.
Yeah, I understand. Yep, and I'm glad you brought that one up because I've already been proactive in that approach. I do have the Ward 1 center on call for if any, if you in the ANCs might know any residents that might can't get out to go pick those up. Yamoka will be glad to drop that off. Just give me the address and let the resident know, and I'll drop as many off as they may need. I've already had talks a couple months ago about this might be a reoccurring thing that might come up. So I'm happy to be of assistance on my Tuesday and Friday sweep days, or even if a resident may need it sooner than that, I can make sure that I drop that off. So just let me know that, and I'll still get that information to you about the libraries as well.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
Great, and a good reminder that I think written testimony is still open for oversight. So if you want to talk about how dedicated our milkers are, this is a good time to do that.
I appreciate it.
All right, any other questions?
Have a good one. Oh, is that all? If everybody's good?
Good. Yeah, thank you so much again for your time and have a good evening.
No problem.
All right, so I think one more person, they had their hand up earlier. I mentioned that the 1C09 position has been filled. If we get Johnny J just a chance to introduce themselves, that's the new commissioner that has not been sworn in yet, but I know they joined to just say hi. If we can get them promoted. Just a moment. Thanks for your patience. John, I know you said that your camera wasn't working, so we'll just hear your voice, but glad to have you. Just say hi. Just wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself before you officially assume your duties. Just need to take yourself off mute. Or give us a few more seconds, but it might have technical difficulties, but we tried. I think if you just touch the screen, if you're on a touch screen device, then you can hit the microphone button. It looks like we're having trouble. Maybe we can get back to it later, but we tried. Glad that you're here. Glad to see you exist and looking forward to working together soon. So we'll move on. Thank you everyone again for your patience. We had a lot of front matter on tonight's agenda, and it's already an hour and a half in. So we'll try to be expedient, but not rushed through the rest of the meeting. The first matter in our regular agenda, well, before that is our consent agenda, excuse me. Only item is the minutes from last month. I think they came out right. They came out last minute. That's on me. If no one has any issues, I'll move to accept the consent agenda for tonight. Try to get a second.
Second. And thank you.
All those, you're welcome. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll go to our regular agenda. We'll start with alcoholic beverage control and public safety committee items. couple of businesses that have applied, and then one other item. We'll start with Mola Empanada. So they came to our most recent committee meeting and presented. And for both of these items, I believe we're considering support for a permanent license, stimulated license, and also signing on to a settlement agreement. All three of those things together, which is fairly standard protocol. I'll let Commissioner Fauschini take on this just because you're the chair and we've gone back and forth with the business lot, so I don't want to make people speak too much. Any words on this matter?
No, this is a really standard settlement agreement that we've entered into with both of these businesses. And should we promote Taylor for Mola? Since the first one on the agenda is them. I know they've already presented. If you want to raise your hand, Taylor, then Sean can find you and promote you. There you are. Hi. And it's nice to have you here. The settlement agreement, it's a very standard settlement agreement. Peter, you're the one that actually worked on this with Mola, and then I worked on the Code Red one. But this is a very normal settlement agreement for us, and we're very happy to have you all present twice already at 2 ABC committee meetings, and then also last month. So I don't know if you have anything else to add, Peter or Janai or Taylor.
No, we're set.
Yeah, glad to see you. I've said all of my thoughts many times, so I'll just leave it at that. But I really appreciate your patience and your cooperation in the process, and looking forward to voting in favor.
Oh, we're thankful for everybody for helping us through this too. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure to get to know you guys and meet everybody.
Likewise. Any questions, comments from the community that's in attendance? Any commissioners? All right, well, it's simple. On that, I will move that we support all of those items, the 2 licenses and sign the settlement agreement. Can I get a second?
I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. We'll send you an email soon. You'll be copied. We'll get all the documentation up.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, so moving on to the next similar Code Red, which is a business that I don't believe has opened doors yet. Mola has. It's similar application. I'll hand it off to Commissioner Fauschini again. You're more directly involved in this, and then it looks like we have some hands going up and down, so I'll sort that out.
Sure. We do have Mark here on the line. So it's let's see, Mark. Oh, I don't see him on the line anymore. Oh, maybe because he's being promoted. There he is. All right, great. So we haven't actually had a presentation on this one yet. It was raised at the committee level, and we did give an opportunity for folks to comment on it. But Mark wasn't able to make the committee meeting earlier this month. So this is the first time we have the opportunity to hear from him. So I'd like to just, if we can, extend Mark the grace of a few minutes to introduce his restaurant and what he's asking for, and then I can talk about the stipulated license that we entered into.
Sounds perfect.
Thank you, Jay. My name is Mark Namdar, and we are opening Code Red in 2440 18th Street, the former Millionaires. So we are really excited about this opportunity, and really we have everything in line as far as all our licenses. So the only thing we are pending on is our liquor license, and we are hoping that the ANC will approve us to be able to open up as soon as possible by approving this stipulated license. And thank you so much for all your support. We want to be good neighbors, and we are committed to helping the neighborhood. So, we appreciate whatever you guys can do for us.
Thanks, Mark. And do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about the concept of the restaurant and what you're planning?
So it's kind of a speakeasy. We want to take people back to prohibition. And, I looked at the Millionaires concept, and, they were here for 50 years. And I talked to Barbara Shapiro a couple of days ago just to, I mean, for a business to run for 50 years in this neighborhood is just a huge task. And I talked to her a couple of days ago, and she was able to give me some insights. You know, our concept is a little bit different than what Millie and Al's were, but it's a kind of a speakeasy. We want to take people through a journey of prohibition. You know, a lot of younger people don't know about this. What happened during the 30s and 20s, and so we want to kind of educate the guest, and we have a great programming, a great food. We have a great chef, mixologist. So we are looking forward to being able to deliver that for our community.
Thanks, Mark. And it was a pleasure working with you through this process. We're very excited for the concept and excited to have you in the neighborhood. It looks like there's a questioner from Commissioner Shapiro, and then I can also just go into the settlement agreement in a little bit more detail, and then we can vote.
Sure.
Your menu looks absolutely delicious.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro.
And Al Shapiro, who's not a relative because he's Shapiro, I'm Shapiro, never had a concept for anything.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Thank you so much.
I don't believe there was a question, so I'll let Commissioner Pasquini go back.
Cool. So I don't know if there's any other questions, but the settlement agreement, very standard settlement agreement. There are no neighbors directly above or to the side. There's no space in front because there's a fire hydrant, so there's no space for a streetery, but there might be some agreement with some of the neighboring restaurants around streetery space. That said, it is a very cloistered location with not many neighbors, so there isn't that much opportunity for noise complaints in the space. Mark is going to be very diligent about food waste that's coming out of the restaurant, very concerned about trash and keeping the alley in good order back behind the space. And I think the restaurant will add a lot of vibrancy to that strip, and is a really great concept. So we're excited to enter into the agreement. Mark was very open to it. We also reached out to the Calorama Citizens Association, and they signed on to the agreement as well, as they did with the Mole Empanada one. So this was again done in partnership with our neighboring community groups, and we're excited to have it in place.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your effort on both your parts, and just kind of to go over the process in just a quick detail. I mean, ideally we go through committee and then we have the whole process over the course of, sometimes 1 to 2 months, depending on the place. And a lot of times that timeline doesn't really match up well with what a business is trying to make available so they can open doors. So whenever there's a good faith actor that's willing to put forth extra effort, and we have the availability to do so as well, we try to come together to make it so we can kind of work through those wrinkles together, which was the case here. So really appreciate that. Glad everything came together pretty seamlessly, and I look forward to voting in favor as well. Any questions or comments from other commissioners? Anyone in attendance? All right, well, on that, I'll move that we support this application in all the parts. So the stipulated full license and settlement agreement. Do I get a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good evening. The next item on our agenda, which has been on multiple agendas, as I've noted, is considering a resolution regarding the expiration of the Adams Morgan moratorium zone. As previously stated, well, 2 parts. One, I should have made sure this was all listed on the agenda tonight, and I failed. But don't plan on voting it tonight. We've had multiple opportunities to discuss it. Just another opportunity for anyone that wants to share voice that hasn't done so before, or if you have spoken but have new thoughts, especially if you changed your mind, I'd be interested to hear. But this is the time to do so, commissioners and otherwise. Any thoughts on this matter? Going once, going twice. On that, I will note that the ABRA temporary extension still has, I think, a good 60 days left or something. So we theoretically are in a good position to go through another cycle of a committee meeting. And then in my mind, of course, we decide collectively at the April meeting would probably make sense to try to find some sort of resolute position as a commission. We can discuss that when the time is appropriate. Before I make a motion, I'll let Commissioner Shapiro speak. Go ahead.
I don't know the rule for this, but because of Passover, I can't be at the April meeting. Is there a mechanism I can offer comments, written comments, but is there any mechanism for voting or not? I can't remember.
As far as I know, there's not some sort of
I didn't know.
Store way of vote in anticipation kind of thing. I think it has to be a live vote. But
Yeah,
obviously at our next week's at our meeting for the ABC committee, that's a good opportunity to speak as well. And there's always the chance that it gets postponed to another month. We haven't. It's not April, so we haven't made that decision officially. But seems like based on past discussions, that makes the most sense. So we'll see what happens. All right. Any other thoughts? Okay, I'll move to postpone this matter to the April 5th meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. We'll get at least one more month out of this. So we'll move on to, I believe, just one more item. It is from the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee. So this came from the committee, so I don't believe we need a second to be voted upon. Commissioner Dixon, you want to give us a bit of detail on what we're dealing with here?
Sure. Deborah Moy is here with us. She has her hand raised. Could you promote her to be a speaker? And Todd Goldstein.
Hi, everyone. This is Deborah with Restaurant Consultants.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi. Yeah, I believe Todd's on this time as well.
Yes, this is Todd Goldstein. Hopefully you can hear me.
Hi, Todd.
Do you want us to give an overview of the patio real quick, or?
Yeah, just a quick overview would be helpful.
Okay, so everyone's probably familiar with Federalist Pig. It is an existing business at 1654 Columbia Road. They do have a current patio permit for their original storefront space, and then they have taken on the neighboring space as well and expanded their patio under the temporary streetery program last year to utilize that space now. And this current application is to come in, since that streetery program is ending the end of May, to file for a permanent application to combine the two spaces into one permanent permit. So that's basically what we're working on.
Great. And so you're seeking a letter of support, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes,
Okay.
that would be wonderful. We're scheduled right now for the April public space meeting, and all of the reviews are done with public space. Everything's approved with the layout with public space. So we're just sitting and waiting for the meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank you
Are
so
there
much.
any questions?
I wasn't able to attend the committee meeting. Did any details that came from discussion there that you'd like to raise here? Or it seems like it was a fairly straightforward process so far.
Yes, it's a pretty basic layout. Would you like me to share screen, or are you okay? You want me to pull it up again, or?
I think you're okay. I was kind of asking Commissioner Dixon as well, just if there's any.
Okay,
other-
sorry. Okay.
No, there was unanimous support from the PZT committee. We had some good questions about accessibility, and all seems in line.
That's great to hear. It sounds like it was a good process. Well, any other questions from commissioners or anyone in attendance? I do have one complaint, which is that your brisket is too delicious and I can never get any.
Will that be recorded into the meeting notes?
We'll let that be decided elsewhere. Commissioner Palestina, go ahead.
Just wanted to also reiterate my support for this as well. Great business, very happy that they're expanding, taking on more capacity in the neighborhood, able to serve more great food to the neighbors. So exactly the kind of businesses we want to be supporting as an ANC, and I'm happy to support.
Thank you.
Well, at that, it looks like we've heard from everyone. Thank you so much for your spending time waiting to speak tonight.
No worries.
So on that, I will move to support this application. Can I get a second? Actually, it does not need a second because it came from committee. So on that, anyone in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Congratulations to everyone that got support tonight. We're glad to be supportive. Thank you for everyone for bearing with 2 hours of meeting, which was a lot of things that we covered. So hopefully it was fruitful for everyone. And thank you for Johnny. I know I'm just acknowledging that you are in the chat. We'll be in touch later and hopefully get to be with you next month, if not sooner, as co-commissioners. So thank you, everyone. Thank you as always to
Thank
Sean.
you.